continues to investigate gun violence in Hampton Roads for the last month. And we've taken a deep dive into how local and national law enforcement trace guns and what they're seeing out on our streets.
Yeah, Newsweek investigator Zach Dahlheimer continues our Trigger Trace series coverage.
Yeah, good evening, Barbara and Bev. Right now, we're hearing from the first police department in Virginia to install the ShotSpotter system, and it's right here in Hampton Roads. And I sat down with Newport News' police chief about how effective this technology is in helping officers fight crime.
We see the spike in gun violence, and I see how that impacts our families, our communities, and our officers that respond. The reason we went to it in this city was for our community.
Newport News Police Chief Steve Drew is referring to this. ShotSpotter, a technology using acoustic sensors to pick up sounds and pinpoint exactly where triggers are pulled.
So it can come right up on their computer screen or on their cell phone, and many times officers will get that indication and how many rounds are fired, and it triangulates at where that shooter is or where those shots are coming from.
The department, the first in Virginia to install the system in July 2019.
When I came here to Newport News just about 3.5 years ago, it was a pleasant surprise to sit down with the mayor, and he brought it up to me first. There wasn't that hurdle to convince. It was, hey, this is something we're going to do. How do we implement it and where?
Drew tells me they collaborated with ShotSpotter using data to determine the most effective area. Right now, he says it's set up in a 3 square mile radius in the city's southeast area.
So when we look at how many shootings did we have, what location are those shootings at, 70% are in this area, then that's the area we need to be focused on. It's clear, it's clean, that we're not picking on a particular entity or group or location. We're focusing on neighborhoods that are impacted by gun violence.
His department is already seeing results, helping with investigations and response times. From July 2019 through September 30th of this year, Newport News police tell us they've had 390 offenses associated with ShotSpotter alerts. For Drew, one example stands out.
About 1.5 years ago, we had a homicide that we didn't get a call on. We had a ShotSpotter activation. So officers go to the scene and they walked around a larger building into an alley. They found our victim. He was deceased. But if they hadn't got out and walked around and utilized that device, if they would have just drove through that neighborhood, I'm glad to say that in about 4 or 5 days, we had 2 or 3 suspects and they had all been arrested at this point.
We also asked Chief Drew about recent spotlight being shown on ShotSpotter. One report from the City of Chicago's Office of Inspector General concluded from its analysis Chicago Police's responses to ShotSpotter alerts rarely produce documented evidence of a gun-related crime, investigatory stop, or recovery of a firearm. Another by Northwestern School of Law's MacArthur Justice Center states the city's police districts where ShotSpotter is deployed are those with the highest proportion of Black and Latinx residents and the lowest proportion of white residents. What's your response to this type of reports related to ShotSpotter?
I'm not sure how they deployed in Chicago, and I would never judge us or compare us to another department. What I can tell you here in the city of Newport News, when we sat down with ShotSpotter and looked about where we should set up that first initial area, it had nothing to do with someone's skin color. It had to do with people being injured, in houses being struck by gunfire, vehicles being struck by gunfire, transporting loved ones to a hospital, telling a mother or father that their loved one was deceased because they were shot and killed in the streets of this city. That is what we looked at.
Overall, Drew hopes to expand ShotSpotter to other areas within the city, including the north and south sides. When it comes to the system, he says transparency with the community is vital about a tool he believes is a piece to the puzzle of addressing gun violence.
For us, it has been beneficial. I very much would be interested in expanding it for the sole purpose of making our community safer.
And Chief Drew also tells us they're looking at expanding and adapting, including putting city cameras where ShotSpotters are currently placed. I'm Zach Dahlheimer for News 3.
And our I-team also reached out directly to ShotSpotter in regard to the report referenced in this piece. Regarding the Chicago Office of Inspector General's report, ShotSpotter officials tell us that in part, the Chicago Police Department continually describes ShotSpotter as an important part of their operations. The OIG report did not specifically suggest that ShotSpotter alerts are not indicative of actual gunfire, whether or not a police report is filed or physical evidence is recovered. Now, ShotSpotter's accuracy has been independently audited at 97% based on feedback of more than 120 customers, end quote. Now, in the reference to the MacArthur Justice Center report, Quote, all residents who live in communities experiencing persistent gunfire deserve a rapid police response, which gunshot detection enables regardless of race or geographic location.